Hey again, fellow aviators and aviation enthusiasts. Don here. Thanks for coming back to my channel. I'm doing another edition of What I Wish I'd Known. This is about getting a job in the current environment of 2024. We know that hiring is a little tough. So I want to talk about something that a friend of mine exposed me to recently. He termed the luck surface area. And the idea is that we get enough opportunities out there, we get enough surface area that we're going to turn one of those opportunities into a job in Career 2.0. And I really like that phrase. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some strategies based on where you may be, given your experience and qualifications relative to a certain role. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into it. So when we talk about luck surface area, as I mentioned, this graphic makes me this graphic seems to hit right home. The idea that, I'm not a very good dart player, but I could probably pop one of these balloons, and metaphorically speaking, if one of those balloons equals a job, then I'm going to have a pretty good chance of landing a job. Now, maybe in 22, 23, the luck surface area looked more like this. I know many of my colleagues, when I first started in my first professional flying job, were, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go fly charter for a while, and then I'm going to go Part 121, and I'm going to get a job at the airline. So they were working on improving their luck surface area, especially in the 121 world where they really wanted to end up. Now, some would argue that the luck surface area right now for many looks something like this, and some would even go so far as to say that it looks like this. I look at some of the low time pilot Facebook posts, and I get a feeling that a lot of people are having anxiety with basically zero luck surface area. I've got a couple thoughts on that toward the end, but let's dive into. Let's say that you have some qualifications, you've been flying for a while, and you're looking at different roles that are commensurate with your experience. First, I want to give you a couple of definitions, and I'm going to leverage my 30 plus years in high tech. I was a hiring manager on many occasions. I found and landed more jobs than are on my LinkedIn profile, and I've learned a thing or two about cycles, market cycles, upturns, downturns, and I think in aviation, especially for some of the younger folks who haven't experienced this, we're definitely in one of these two places. To give you a hint, I don't think we're here anymore in 2024. And I don't want to get into a deep dive of the hiring market in 2024. There's many with much more data and can talk more specifically about that. But to me, we're not here, right? In a job seekers market, there's more openings than applicants. The pace of hiring is quick. Offers typically go out very quickly. And a really important nuance, and this really relates to flying qualifications, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, is that employers, and I've done it, will often stretch a candidate to fill a given role. They'll think beyond just what they're seeing, what they're reading on paper and the resume, and they'll say, yeah, this person can handle it, because there's just not enough qualified applicants out there. Now, when we're an employer's market, the dynamic shifts pretty dramatically. There's fewer openings than qualified applicants. The pace of hiring, the total number of new hires definitely slows down. Offers tend to take longer. And I think bullet point number 4 is really, really important, and it explains why 2 and 3 almost always happen in in an employer's market. And that is, employers are waiting to find the perfect candidate. And I've seen this. I've lived it. People say, well, that person's great, but we know there's going to be a lot more applicants because it's an employer's market, and therefore we're going to wait. So that can lead to a lot of frustration, especially as I get into sort of describing what I'm going to do here, the different job personas and sort of the different risks and benefits and things you may run into. So let's talk about you're the perfect fit for a job, okay? You've got 1,200 hours. You've got 600 hours in an SR-22, and there's a company that wants you to fly an SR-22 Part 135. You've got it nailed. Maybe you've even got a Class 1 medical. I don't know. You check all the boxes, okay? Now, your initial approach for a job like this, quite reasonably, is going to be sending out, filling out applications, sending out emails, job fairs, word of mouth, social channels. People are going to know in social channels that you're qualified, and you're likely to get a referral for a job like this. Here's the challenge. You're definitely going to pass the screen. I used to work in artificial intelligence, and I can tell you in no uncertain terms, one of the big uses for artificial intelligence right now is resume screening, and it gets worse in a market like we're in. So if you don't have the keywords in your resume, and if the AI doesn't see that you have the appropriate ratings, certifications, qualifications, time, you're not even going to pass that screen. Now, the good news for you, if you're the perfect fit for the job, is you're going to pass that. The downside, however, you may not stand out. Remember, I said a minute ago that employers often get this, we think there's more out there to be had mentality, so we're going to wait. That's one of the risks here. The biggest risk is that you get lost in the shuffle because there are so many candidates and stiff competition. And I've alluded to this, but I'll just say it. They're oftentimes invisible boxes. In other words, there's aspects of the job that they don't even post, candidates like you don't even know about, yet you're still being held to a standard that's not even stated. Symptoms of the issue, I applied, I'm the perfect fit, I've never heard back, right? I've been there in tech many times, and I get it, and I empathize. So how do you increase your luck surface area in this situation? What are some of the strategies you can use to try to break through, okay? Number one, direct follow-up. You're qualified, direct follow-up emphasizing why you're right for this job is absolutely key. And at the same time, I would highly encourage you to be a good listener and try to ferret out any of those invisible boxes that I alluded to. Yeah, Don, you're great. You've got exactly the qualifications we're looking for, but we were kind of hoping that, you'd want to be an instructor pilot, or we have ideas about some other aircraft that we want you to fly. I don't know what it is, but if you're a good listener, oftentimes you can figure out those invisible boxes and then come up with a strategy to address them, okay? In that vein, emphasize what more you bring to the job. Not only am I a great pilot and I've got all the qualifications, but I'd love to do X, Y, and Z. And I see how I can add to the operation. Many, especially smaller operators, you've got pilots that are doing multiple roles. I flew with an organization where the chief pilot was also in charge of scheduling, and there's a lot of crossover and a lot of multiple hats being worn. So if you get a chance, emphasize what more you bring to the job than just your flying credentials. Critical in an environment like this. Of course, more applications. More balloons on the board, so when you throw that dart, you've got a bigger chance of breaking one of the balloons. I would say here, make a special emphasis. You always want to, as I'm going to say here, always want to leverage your personal network. But casual relationships that you have, the guys at the FBO, the mechanics you may know, if you have the qualifications, I can say in no uncertain terms, they're going to be highly likely, definitely more likely, to refer you to a potential opening, that they may know about, because they're not taking too big a risk since you've got the qualifications. Okay, let's look at another scenario. You're overqualified. Saw this a lot in several of the tech downturns that I've lived with, and this is a genuine, real problem for overqualified candidates. I don't have the experience in seeing as much in aviation, but I'll tell you, in tech, it is real. Your initial approach is going to be very similar to if you had the perfect qualifications. You're going to apply via email, applications, job boards, yada, yada, yada. Here's where the risks start setting in. You're going to pass the screen, of course, with flying colors. But there may be an appearance of desperation because, again, there's more candidates than there are opportunities, and organizations get hypersensitive to anything that would cause them to kick you to the curb, to kick your resume out of the stack. And if they think that you're desperate because you're overqualified and applying for a job that is clearly, beneath you skills-wise, they're going to be hypersensitive to that, okay? And they're going to have concerns over longevity. So, let's say that they're thinking about hiring for a role that's going to involve some training expense. You can understand why an employer might pause if somebody's coming in with way more experience. Okay, I'm talking about a couple of strategies to mitigate this. Same symptoms, though. I applied, never heard back. How to increase your luck surface area in this circumstance? Direct follow-up. You want the job, as opposed to you're qualified for the job. They know you're qualified, right? You have to convince them that you actually want the job and drop those subtle things that you're going to pick up by being a good listener. Are they worried about, training expenses? Then I'm going to walk out the door 6 months. whatever it may be. Again, being a good listener really helps. Ferreting out the things that during that direct follow-up you need to address head on. Address the overqualification issue head on. This is in line with, proving you want the job. But say, look, I know I've been flying citations for the last 10 years. You're probably not listening to these videos because you're not Career 2.0. But, I know I've been doing X, Y, and Z for a long, long time, but I really want this job because, okay? More applications, of course, working your network, nothing different here. But I really want you to think about this. As I mentioned a moment ago, employers have even keener senses and higher thresholds for hiring people in this environment. And you need to be honest with yourself. Yes, you want that job, but are you willing to do that job? I've been in a situation recently where I was still in tech and I was interviewing for a job and I was a perfect candidate, maybe a little overqualified, but a perfect candidate. And they smelled out that I didn't really want the job. And in my heart of hearts, I didn't. So people will figure that out. And so you have to be honest with yourself before you go down that route. And maybe you just need to hold out for something better that's more in line with your experiences. Okay, the Bluebird, this is, candidly, this is what happened to me in one of my most recent jobs. I would have never applied. I didn't know that I was qualified. It was just knowing the right people. I was referred to the position, and I had a person vouch for me based on my flying experience with them in the past. I wouldn't even have passed the first screen. They would have never even looked at my resume, okay? There are no risks because you're probably not applying for these, and you don't know where you stand. The only possible way, in my humble opinion, and thinking about this in the context of getting a job in Career 2.0, that you can increase your luck surface area for these kinds of roles is to increase your personal network. And I mean, as you're doing additional ratings and flying with more people, make your desires known to them. I'm doing this so that I can get my ATP and go fly jets, or whatever the case may be. And increasing that personal network is really the only way to increase the luck surface area significantly. You can, again, you're always going to work your existing network and see if maybe, especially as you progress in your training or in your ratings or whatever it may be, make sure you're keeping your network updated, right? Don't assume that everybody's going to know that, oh, Don just got his multi and he's working on his ATP. It just doesn't work that way. Okay, so in summary, definitely more competition, less attrition, less turnover. 121's hiring less. Charter pilots are going to 121 less. It goes all the way down, right, to the entry-level jobs. It's just the reality. Understand your qualifications relative to the job descriptions as I've described in those three scenarios. Of course, there's going to be other scenarios. This video would be 20 minutes long if I tried to cover them, or 2 hours long if I try to cover all of them. But understand that there is a relative position that you stand regarding the job description. You need to understand that and follow up accordingly, okay? As I say, vary your approach based on the above. Work your network, and I don't mean just social media, not just Facebook and Reddit and the job boards. In this environment, I can tell you in no uncertain terms, when I was in tech and we went through the downturn, 2008, 2013, definitely 2001, I'm old enough to have been working then, guys, the job boards there was nothing there, okay? Because nobody needed to post on a job board. And with aviation, it's going to be the same thing. I'll hold my further comment at that, but not just socials. Expand your personal network. Somebody said to me, if you were trying to expand your luck surface area, and if you're a CFI, and if you're only flying with 8 students, and that's all you're doing, and that's your entire network, you really are cutting yourself off. You're selling yourself short. So expand that personal network however you can. A little redundant, but don't rely on electronic applications alone for reasons. Even if you're qualified, especially even if you're overqualified, electronic applications in an employer's market are not typically going to get the job done. It takes that personal contact. It takes the work. You've got to research the jobs. What are they looking for? Talk to other pilots that have flown there. In other words, impress upon them how you stand out from the rest of the folks that are applying for this job. It's hard work. I get it. I've been there. So I'm going to end on one last point. I talked to a lot of people. They want to go fly, say, the caravans that I flew. Unfortunately, they're not at IFR Part 135 minimums. You only have 1,200 hours, or they don't have enough nighttime. You just have to do that and make some sacrifice. If you're looking for, the next step up, as I did, I will tell you. And again, I'm going to get a lot of flamerade, or haterade is what it's called, I guess. I'm going to get a lot of haterade over this, I'm sure. But I made a conscious decision before as I was investigating my next step from the 208s, that the only way that I was going to get to where I wanted to be was to get my ATP. And in order to do that, I was going to have to get not only my multi-engine rating, but I was going to have to get enough time in multi-engines so that in the instance that I got an offer to go to flight safety, I could do my ATP check ride in the simulator. That also involved me self-funding, me paying for the ATP CTP, not cheap. I'll do another session on that if people are interested. That's going to be a $5,000 bill for you to get the ATP CTP course done, which, if you don't know what that is, research it. I'll do a video. You can't even take the ATP written exam until you do the ATP CTP. So it's a big commitment. But you know what? If you're really focused on Career 2.0 and you know that's where you want to go, you may need to make some sacrifices in this particular market especially. Don't give up. It's a huge world out there. There's lots of opportunities. I've been on all different sides of this equation, and I have friends and ex-colleagues that are going through it now, and it's easy to give up, but don't. The best thing you can do, figure out a way, make a new contact, meet somebody new in the flying world that maybe has a contact that can help you. It's all about expanding that luck surface area. You can do it. Okay, thank you. I know this was a little longer than what I'm trying to make my standards, but I'd love it if you'd comment, like, subscribe if you're so inclined, and thanks for watching.